Want to share with everyone how truly blessed I feel because I've known the meaning of unconditional love since the day I was born. And that's due to the example that my grandmother set. Now, I don't know how many people watch the show The Beverly Hillbillies, but they used to refer to their grandmother as Granny. So I started calling my grandmother Granny, and it kind of stuck. Now, I'm not the only, I'm the not only the youngest person in my immediate family, I am the youngest person in my whole extended family. And my grandmother would refer to me as the baby. And everybody else started referring to me as the baby. And to this day, I am known as the baby. So it's great because no matter how old I get, I'm still the baby. Now, when my mother first taught me how to eat, she proceeded to put the fork in my right hand. And I would take the fork out of my right hand and put it in my left hand. And she'd take it out of my left hand and put it in my right hand. And I'd start to cry. The reason my mother was doing this is she knew how hard it was to be a lefty in this world. And she was trying to make me be a righty. But my granny said to her, leave her alone. She wants to be a lefty. Let her eat in peace.
That
Now,
was a pretty good grandmother you had, wasn't it? Darn, I wish I had a grandmother like that.
well, we can't all be that lucky.
But
Now,
did you ever have problems with rude guys calling you "Hey babe" because your family always called you the baby? Hey babe.
hey, I answer to almost anything these days. So, baby.
I can relate to the baby of the family because I am the baby of the extended family too. And I'll tell you, the older I get, the less I feel like a baby. But when I look at them, like you, I'm still the baby of the family.
Yes. Now, my puppy Pecos got sick one day, and my grandmother took me to the market, and we bought this inexpensive meat. And she showed me how to make meatballs and boil them to serve to Pecos, my puppy. And sure enough, he got better fairly soon. That's a secret recipe, and you'll have to ask nicely to get it out of me. Okay.
Was there special meat in the meatballs?
Yeah, it was cheap. Because my grandmother wasn't going to buy the expensive meat for the dog, but she wanted to get real meat.
So it was real people meat, not like a dog mixture from a dog store.
Right. It was real beef.
Oh, okay.
Maybe it had a little more fat in that than your average beef, but it was real beef.
You mean like real beef, like real hooves and tails and tongues and ears? Everything that's part of the cow, right?
Part of the cow.
So you had meatballs made of tongues?
I didn't really go in depth of what was in the meat. My job was to take the meat, show me how to make a ball out of the meat, put it in the pot, boil it, and serve it up to my puppy so he could get better soon.
And did he?
He did. It was like almost right away. It was like magic. So I'm just telling you, it's a secret recipe. Now, my granny and I used to play a lot of games. And one of the games we played was we'd each pick a raindrop on the window pane and see which raindrop would be the fastest one to get to the bottom of the windowsill.
Oh, wow.
We played board games and we also played card games. And unbeknownst to me, my granny was always losing on purpose. So I would win every time, and I was just feeling amazing. But one day she won by accident, and she started laughing, and she was laughing so hard she started choking. And so my mother came running in the room to see what was wrong. And once my granny could catch her breath, she whispered in my mother's ear and told her that she was trying to lose and won by accident. So then they both started laughing, and I couldn't believe this. They're laughing at my expense. What is going on? It wasn't until years later that they told me that she was actually trying to lose.
So I have a question to go back to when you said you played a bunch of games and you said different games, and one of them you said boy games. What are boy games?
Board,
Oh,
board,
board.
board, board games like Monopoly.
All right. Well, that makes sense.
That shows your age. That shows your age.
What kind of board games did you play? Did you play Risk or Wide World or Life, Game of Life? Parcheesi?
Chutes and Ladders, Candyland, you know, the real popular ones.
The less challenging ones.
Speaking of bored, gee, I'm feeling like I gotta, I, I'm, I want to talk about myself here.
Go right ahead.
Oh dear.
There you go, honey.
Oh man. Barbara, you.
I took you up on that. Go right ahead. Talk about yourself.
That was a good one.
Well, I guess I need a dose of that cheap meat to get me better. Anyway.
Now, whenever I'd go over my aunt's house, because I was a very picky eater, she'd always make me meatballs and little hot dogs, because I love little meatballs and hot dogs.
Same kind of meatballs that you fed your dog?
No, this was the human kind. She was, I'm getting the high class meat for these meatballs. So one holiday party that my aunt had, she had a big food buffet, and she forgot to make me my meatballs and little hot dogs. So when I started getting hungry, I start looking on the table. Now I was about 4 years old, so my head came up to the top of the table. So I kind of just reached up on the table to just grab something, and I grabbed this piece of meat that had fat all around the perimeter. And I was like, I'm a picky eater as it is, but fat is not gonna cross my lips. So I took the fat and I peel it off and I put it in a pile on her table. And then I take another piece of meat and pull off all the fat and then put it back on her table. Well, then I walked away and one of her guests looked on the table and said, "What's this, Lil?" And she looked and pile of fat, and then she thought about it and she said, "I know who it has to be." So she ran to find me, and she's trying to reprimand me on messing up her table when my granny came to my defense and said, "Lil, you know better. You should have made her meatballs and little hot dogs, because if you did that, she would have never messed up your table." And I love the fact that my granny always came to my defense. Now, I used to watch soap operas with my grandmother, and I still remember all the titles. Days of Our Lives, The Guiding Light, As the World Turns, General Hospital. I would watch these with her with my head in her lap. But she had this hearing aid, an old-fashioned hearing aid. It had a box on the side with an earplug. And inevitably, for whatever reason, this hearing aid would go off with this ear-piercing noise. It was horrible. And she'd just be sitting there like just watching the soap opera. She didn't hear a thing. But to everybody else in the room, you just had to cover your ears. And I'd shake her and say, "You got to fix your hearing aid. It's going off with that buzz. It's killing us." Now, I tried to take up sewing at one time, and I made her this nightgown that turned out to be a little lopsided. But every time she came over our house, she was wearing that nightgown because she said she loved it. And it would always make me smile. So, yes, I am truly grateful for knowing what unconditional love is. And I've known it since the day I was born because of my granny. Thank you.